In this video, we're going to talk about some material from chapter 4. We're going to talk about Boolean expressions, and we're going to talk about the if statement and the switch statement. Boolean expressions use relational operators. So these are operators, and they similar to the arithmetic operators that we've seen, plus, minus, divide. These are relational operators. They, instead of doing math on values, they compare two values and return a true or false a value or true or false result for if something is equal, not equal, greater than, etc. Okay, so the so greater than or less than, greater than or equal, these are the same values that we use in math. These are a little unique. The equality symbol is the double equal. Remember, we use a single equal for an assignment. We use the double equal for equality, and then we use the not equal. So in Java speak, the exclamation point is called not. And so if you say exclamation equals, that stands for inequality. So this, we would read this as not equal. So that is a question. Is the right side of this expression equal to the left side of this expression, etc.? Is the right side of this expression not equal to the left side, greater than, less than, etc.? Okay. String values cannot be compared using the equality and inequality. There is a built-in function called string.equals that you have to use. This is a very common error that you will make, where you'll try to compare the value of two strings using the equality operator, the double equal. It will never work. So you always have to use the string.equals expression when you are comparing the values of strings. So we use the relational operators to create Boolean expressions. A Boolean expression is an expression that evaluates to true or false. So in this case, this is a question: is score equal to 999? That will be yes or no, true or false. If score is equal to 999, the result of this Boolean expression will be true, which is a Boolean data type, one of our primitive data types. We can then use that Boolean expression to code an if statement or switch or a loop, a while loop or a for loop of some kind that we want to use to control the flow of our program. So here's what we have. This is letter equals y. This is a char value. This is not a string. We know it's a char because it's got the single quotes. This would not work if these were string data types. So this only works if they're char data types. Here's a not equal. Here's a greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. Okay, you can also compare a Boolean expression. So valid, if valid is a Boolean data type, you can say, does it equal true or does it equal false? Okay, and so you can use Boolean variables in Boolean expressions, just like you can use data types, other data types, other variables of other data types. We can also do some logical operators, so we can do and or not. So if we want to have a more complex thing, maybe we want to check two values. It's got to be this and this, or it's got to be this or this. Then we can make compound Boolean expressions using and or. So the and is the ampersand. We use two of them, and the or is the pipe symbol. We use two of them. So this is the straight up in the line, what's called the pipe in Java lingo. So double pipe is the or. Okay. On my keyboard, I use a Mac. On my keyboard, the double pipe is on the right side of the keyboard, right on top of the slash button, the backslash. And so you can find it there on your keyboard. Make sure you use this though. It's got to be the double pipe, or it won't work properly. Okay, and then we can use not. So we can use the exclamation point on its own to negate a relative expression. This is not real common, but we will see it. We will see it in some of our examples. Here's an example of the and operator. So I want age is greater than or equal to 65 and city.equals Chicago. So in this case, city is a string value, and so we want to test to see if it equals Chicago. Remember that you can't use the double equal, the equality operator on strings. You have to use the built-in method .equal. So this is an example of the age must be greater than or equal to 65, and the value of the city needs to equal Chicago, and this is case sensitive in this case. Okay, So it's got to be uppercase C, lowercase hi, etc. So in this case, both of these things have to be true in order for this whole Boolean expression to evaluate for true. If either one is false, then the whole expression will be false. Here's an OR operator. This means that either one of these things needs to be true, but not necessarily both. So if either one is true, then this whole expression will be true. If they're both true, then the whole expression will be true. If they're both false, then the expression will evaluate to false. And that's because we're using the OR function here, the double pipe. So this is basically the same as the AND operator, but we're using this second expression is the same comparisons as the AND, only it uses the OR data type here. So in this case, it's the city is equal to Greenville, or you're greater than or your age is greater than or equal to 65. Either one needs to be true. In this case, here we're using a not age greater than or equal to 65. This really means the age is less than 65. So, this would read better if you would actually use the less than operator instead of notting this, but this is just an example of how the not would work. You can use multiple ands or ors. In this case, we have 3 values: age, city equals, state equals. So all 3 of these things have to be true. You can also do that with ors. In this case, any one of the 3 being true will yield the entire expression as true. Okay, here's some more examples. We can also, there's order of precedence here, so we can also put these in parentheses. So in this case, we see that we have age and status, or age less than or 18. So in this case, we have this and is then evaluated. So we evaluate these 2 values. They both have to be true, or this one value has to be true. So in this case, this is a compound statement with using parentheses to give order of operations and precedence in the expression. We use Boolean expressions to create if statements and while loops so that we can control the flow of our program. So here's the syntax of an if-else statement. And then we put a Boolean expression in parentheses. Then we create a block using statements. So this is what we call the then block. So if this expression is true, then the then block will execute. Else, if this expression is not true, then we can execute statements, and we can have compound statements here. So else if, we can do another expression, or we can just have a one else that would execute. So in this case, we say if this expression is true, then do this. Otherwise, check this expression and do this. Otherwise, check this expression. Otherwise, do this. So this final else would be the default case. So in this case, one and only one of these statement blocks is going to run. It's either going to be this one because this expression is true. It's going to be this one because this first expression is false. The second one is true, in which case we'll execute this. If both of these expressions are false, then we will execute the final else block, what we would call the default block. Here's an example of one. Double discount percent equals 0.05. So we've created a variable called discount percent. It has type double, and we've assigned a literal value of 0.05. We say if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 100, then we're going to change the discount percent to 0.1. Okay, so in this case, if this Boolean expression, subtotal, we didn't define subtotal here in this example, but in this case, if subtotal is greater than or equal to 100, then the discount percent will be changed to 0.1. Because there is no else clause on this, if subtotal is not greater than or equal to 100, then this block will not execute because the Boolean expression is false, in which case discount percent will remain at 0.05 and will not be changed. So this block will not always run. It will only run if subtotal is greater than or equal to 100. Here's one with an else percent, or with an else block. So in this case, one, but only one of these 2 blocks is going to run. So it's either going to be the then clause or the else clause. One of them will run, but not both of them. Okay, so you can flow through that. Subtotal greater than or equal to 100, then set the discount percent at 0.1, otherwise set it at 0.5. Here's some combinations of else if. So if you want to do a range calculation, in this case, we want to say if the subtotal is greater than 300, greater than 200, greater than 100, etc. So in this case, we have a range check. So we have, but again, in this if statement, there's an if, an else if, and a default block. Only one of these discount percent assignment statements is going to run. Only one of them runs. And it depends on which one of these Boolean expressions is true. Okay. Here's another way that you can code this using ranges. These statements, this block of code and this block of code are functionally equivalent. They yield the same results. Which one is better, you might ask? It depends which one you prefer to read. Whichever one is easier for you to read is the one that is better. In this case, it is important to note though that this is a flowing down in the execution. So this the first Boolean expression that's true is going to end the if statement. So if subtotal is greater than or equal to 200, we're going to execute this discount percent. Then this if block is going to end. We won't even do this Boolean expression on the third expression. So you've got to make sure that that you're checking in the right order. In this case, we're checking down, and so greater than or equal to 300, greater than or equal to 200. Anything that's greater than or equal to 200 is also going to be greater than well, anything that's greater than 300 is also going to be greater than 200. So you want to make sure that you're checking these in the right order so that you don't get a logical error. In this case, we're checking from the bottom up instead of from the top down, and so we're checking ranges using the AND functions, the AND operators. Which one is preferred? The one that's easier for you to read. So whichever one that is for you, use that. I prefer this one at the top just because it's less code. Here's a statement, an if statement that has multiple statements in the then and else clauses. So we're using the block definer here. Open curly brace, close curly brace, just like we do when we're declaring our class or a main method. We're using the curly braces to declare a code block. So you got to make sure that you line these up. Notice the syntax here: if parentheses with the Boolean expression inside, open the code block at the end of the line. Put your code in, indented. Your code must be indented here. Then you close the then block using the curly brace lined up at the same column as the if statement started. If you have an else clause, you put that on the same line as the closing bracket of the then block, and then of course do another block there. So this formatting is important because the compiler doesn't care if you format this, if you do the indentions and line up the curly braces. The compiler will read it nonetheless. But you as a human, you want to format this and keep this code indented and clean and nicely formatted so that you can read it without making errors. If your indentation is all over the place and you're not consistent with your syntax and your formatting, it will just be hard to read and you will make mistakes in the code. So the formatting is important to you as a human reader of the code. The compiler doesn't care, but you will care if you're trying to debug this, or you've made an error and you're trying to figure out what went wrong. All right, you can also code if statements without braces. This is a really bad idea and you should not do it. It is syntactically correct, but it will more than likely cause you an error later in life. So my advice to you is don't ever do it. You can nest if statements. So in your if statement, in your code block for your then, we see here, this is the then code block. I can put another if statement. Okay. I can also do those in else if in this type. So these two pieces of code are functionally equivalent. Okay. So which one is better? Again, which one is easier for your brain to wrap around? I tend to prefer nested if statements. But sometimes just based on the way that the problem is being presented, the else ifs are better. So really, it doesn't really matter. Just whichever one is easier to read and easier for you to understand as you write it. That's the better way to do it. We also have a different kind of if statement called a switch. Switch is it's similar to an if statement in that we give it an expression. So this is not a Boolean expression. This is an expression that evaluates to something. So we might use a switch to evaluate a response from a user. Maybe we ask them a yes or no question, and they enter yes or no. We could use a switch statement to say if the user's input, then we can say case, and this would be the comparison value. So if the switch expression equals label 1, then we do these statements. If it equals label 2, we do these statements, and then there's a default here. If none of these case values is true, then we do the default. So think of this as an if then else if, and an else. So, but this helps. This is just a different approach to if statements. This works great using a switch works great if you have a limited number of possible outcomes. So for example, if you ask the user to enter A, B, C, or D, a switch statement is a great way to do that because you have 4 values that you're looking for, A, B, C, D. So you can use a switch statement to code the results, to code the flow for that, then have a default if they entered something besides A, B, C, or D. Whereas in an if statement, if you're looking at a range, anything greater than 300, greater than 200, can't really do the range comparisons here in the switch. You really want an if statement for that. So switch statement is great if you have a finite number, small number of possible values that you're trying to test for. Here's one, an example of one. This takes product ID, and if product ID is equal to 1, then we're going to run this code. If it's equal to 2, we're going to run this code. If it's equal to anything other than 1 or 2, then we run this code. Notice at the end of each case, there's a break statement. You must do this. If you do not put the break statement in, if case 1 is correct and there's no break, we'll do case 2 as well. So you've got to make sure that you put the break statement in here. Otherwise, your code will not operate correctly. So always make sure you have that case in there. You can have multiple case statements with the same value. So in this case, day code. If it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if any of these are true, then we're gonna execute this case. In the case of Saturday or Sunday, we're going to execute this case. So in this case, we have 7 values. And so this is kind of like an or clause. If it's any of these, Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, etc., then we'll do this. Saturday or Sunday, we'll do this. Notice the parenthesis or the brackets here. The switch has a bracket. We have the switch, we have the switch expression, then we have the open curly brace and the closed curly brace. There are no brackets for the case clause. If I wanted, I can put an if statement or something else that might require brackets in my code here, but for the case clause itself, there are no curly braces. Kind of a departure. I'm not really sure why Java did that, but there it is. We use the colon and the break statements instead to define those blocks. A little unique in the way that code blocks are defined in Java. All right, so in subsequent videos, we'll do some of these examples, and they'll be posted separately.